Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking Phillies Sports with Matty B program. Here on the edge of Phillies Sports with your boy Matty B. It is in actuality on real time. It's Thursday evening around 7 o'clock, October the 26th, 2003. But when you see this, it'll be somewhere in the early evening hours of October 27th, Friday. We are doing another pre-recorded, the last one, unfortunately, due to the scheduling conflicts at the National League Championship Series, and the Phillies brought us. But of course, we already know that won't be necessary anymore because of what went down this week at Citizen Bank Park. And of course, I'm kind of late to the show when it comes, or late to the party, I guess, when it comes to throwing my 2 cents into the ring about what happened. But never fear, because we've reached that moment in time where I will be providing you my 2 cents about how I feel about what transpired down at the bank in Arizona and all that. And that's going to happen on this program tonight. But I'm going to save that for a little bit later on because we have a lot to do tonight. We're going to start things off as we do every show here on this show. As you can see, my mind is still reeling from the events that occurred earlier this week. But we have the Birds Breakdown segment with Kyle Quinn coming up here in about 5 minutes or so. Kyle will join us. We'll mix it up with some Eagles. We'll recap Eagles Dolphins and preview Eagles Commanders as the Birds now flying high at 6-1. Pulling off the upset in my mind against the Miami Dolphins, and they did it convincingly. So I'm going to get Kyle's take on that, and then, as I mentioned, we'll preview some of the Commander stuff, and then we'll get into the said Philadelphia Phillies. After that, there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about there, and then wrap things up with some Flyers and some Sixers. That's right, folks. I'm going 4 for 4 tonight. As I will discuss the Sixers, who their season, even though you're supposed to believe that tonight's Friday. It's not, but yeah, it is Friday. So the Sixers season started last night, not hearing about now. But the Sixers season begins in the proximity of time that I'm talking. All right, so perhaps it's obviously when you see the show, the game would have already been played, but of course tonight it's actually happening. So we'll throw some Sixers in. I'm not certain it's what you're going to want to hear, but it's the way I feel about this organization, and really the way I felt about this organization for a few years now. And we'll talk Sixers. So I'm going to go 4 for 4 tonight. It has been a hot minute in time before I've gone actually 4 for 4. And even though I bill myself as a 4 for 4 kind of guy, there hasn't been really much that I wanted to spend time with when it comes to the Sixers. But I will address all that tonight at the back end of this show and wrap things up. So as I mentioned, a lot going on here on the program, but let's get it kicked off the way we get it kicked off every week. And that is your day in Philadelphia sports history. Again, Friday, October the 27th, 2023. A couple choice things to kind of go with. And you know what? I'm going to kick it dog wise down because that's just how I feel right now. And that's what the Phillies are doing to me, or they did to me all week long or this week. And so what? I'm going to return the favor a little bit to them. So I go back to my day in Philadelphia sports history, all the way back to the beautiful year of 2008. On this night in 2008, Game 5 of the 2008 World Series between the Phillies and Rays, Part 1 kicked off down there at Citizen Bank Park. And of course, this was the game that was going to be the Phillies entering this game up 3-2. They were 3-1 in the series, looking to finish things off, looking to capture their second ever World Series title. And I think this game was highly anticipated around the Delaware Valley. I say think because I was nowhere near the Delaware Valley when this game happened. I was about maybe 7,000 miles to the east of the Delaware Valley when this game happened. I happened to be in Iraq at the time, and it didn't stop me from watching the game. Both parts, but I was nowhere near the Delaware Valley. But what I've heard was this was probably one of the most highly anticipated games in Philadelphia sports history as the precipice of a world championship loomed. And of course, we all know what happened on that fateful night. The Phillies behind Cole Hamels. In the middle of a steady rain the entire game. Played their hearts out. The Rays mounted a late inning comeback and then tied the game in the 7th inning. And very conveniently, even though the weather had been crappy for the majority of the game, Major League Baseball, once the Rays tied it, I believe it was 3-3, decided to suspend the game in the bottom of the 7th inning due to the weather. Again, very conveniently waiting to see if the Rays were able to tie it. It was a huge controversy around baseball about it was the first and only postseason game that's ever been suspended due to weather, not called off or called short or rescheduled, but it was just straight up suspended. And they would have to wait 48 hours because it was scheduled to go off the next day, but the rain persisted, and it wouldn't be until it was a Monday, so it wouldn't be till Wednesday night and Thursday morning where I was until Game 5, Part 2 would go off, and the Phillies would, of course, eventually win the game and capture the World Series that year. But that was your day in Philadelphia sports history way back then in the year 2008. And it was as I mentioned, I would have loved more than anything in the world to have been here or in Philly for that, but duty called, and I was in Iraq at the time. So, but as I said, I'll never forget it. I watched both parts in my office at like 4 o'clock in the morning. The game started, and it was a beautiful moment. Even though I was alone and 7,000 miles away, it was a very beautiful moment when they actually did win the World Series. The moment that I'll never forget, obviously, because it doesn't seem like we can bank on many championships, especially with the baseball team. And to be able to experience both of them in my lifetime has been great. But I fear that I won't see the third one in my lifetime. And as I mentioned, as we get a little bit deeper into the show, I'm going to spend a good chunk after the Birds Breakdown segment with Kyle. We're going to go over the Phillies, and there's a whole bunch to unpack. Of course, Dave Dombrowski, Rob Thompson, Sam Friend, whatever his name is, the general manager, they spoke today, kind of closing out business for the season. And, nothing really juicy to take from that press conference at all. It was very vanilla, very, very the answers that you expect to hear from a team that has spent millions of dollars to assemble it, and then to have what happened in the NLCS happen to it. No one was throwing anybody under the bus. There was acknowledgement of some issues and acknowledgement of some changes that needed to be made, but nothing earth-shattering. And it seems like, at least, I guess it's a safe bet that Rob Thompson will return as the Phillies manager in 2024, potentially as a lame duck, which I don't care who you are. There is no way for me to justify, and if I'm management, there's no way for me to justify being a lame duck. If you're in on me, then give me the contract. Don't make me go into a season as this, of this thing kind of hanging over my head. But the question was presented to Dave Dombrowski about that, and he kind of just said he hadn't really that discussion hasn't been had yet, but they definitely will have it heading into the season and whatever. But as I said, it was just the press conference did happen, and we'll get into all that later on in the show. Trust me, I haven't had my opportunity to kind of throw my 2 cents in, but that's going to have to wait because we're standing by, and we have reached the time in the show now. We get to bring in our main man, Kyle Quinn, and we're going to do some Birds Breakdown, the Birds Breakdown segment here on the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B program, sponsored by me. So let's bring him to the forefront. Kyle, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. How you feeling?
Well, I'm doing about as good as I could be after that Phillies choke job. I just heard you talking about it a little bit. It's still tough kind of picking up the pieces from that one, and it made it a little harder to enjoy that ass kicking of the Dolphins that the Eagles handed out on Sunday night. So, I'm getting there, but hopefully we really hit the ground running on the Eagles season without, the looming threat of despair with the Phillies. So things will get a little bit better.
Kyle, that's an interesting point of view that I mean, I've thought about it, but I guess I haven't really put too much thought about that. Is there a part of you that is, I don't want to say happy, but is there a part of you that's okay? Does it help the grieving process to know that you have a whole half plus of football left, of a season left to kind of now focus your attention on now that the Phillies have been eliminated?
It helps as much as it can. I mean, it definitely also helps that the team is 6-1 and not 1-6, because otherwise you're looking down the pipeline of just more misery for the months to come. So yeah, I mean, you hope that the Eagles can kind of pick up where they left off, where the Phillies left off, and give the city something really to cheer about, man. I'm getting back to the full blown Eagles excitement.
Well, I don't know, pick up where the Phillies left off. I don't want them to be cold and unable to make in-game adjustments. I definitely don't want the Eagles to be like that. But I think I get your point, though. Yeah. All right, Kyle. Let's get into the said Miami Dolphins because you're right. I don't know if I mean I watched the game. I think everybody else did, but obviously one eye was somewhere else. I mean, there was no Phillies game that night, but still we were kind of still feeling the vibes of Game 5 and all that. But on Sunday, and to the Eagles' credit, they handled their business against a contending team, a team that I can't sit here and tell you this is another one of those paper teams that they're steamrolling through, but a convincing 31-17 victory in the Kelly Greens under the bright lights of Sunday Night Football down at the Link. The Eagles really handled the game and handled their business well in all aspects. So let's get into what you saw happen down there at the Link on Sunday night.
So I mean, I would say it's the most impressive win, regular season wise, at least, of the Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts era. Because, like you mentioned, I think there were a lot of times last year where even when the Eagles beat some of the teams with the better records and the winning records, there was a lot of talk about they're not as good as the record says. Nobody says that about the Miami Dolphins. I think everyone going into this one either was expecting close game, Eagles loss. I know you were. I had my nerves a little bit. They were a tough team. I mean, the Dolphins were a good team. Their offensive outputs they were putting up from up to that point in the season were really, really impressive. But it was a good spot for the Eagles. It was a bad spot for the Dolphins. It was a good matchup for the Eagles. I mean, the Dolphins don't really have a very good defense, and they weren't really prepared for what the Eagles were going to try and do to win that game. I will say, Sean Desai and the defense and performance that they had with some of the guys that they were lacking on the back end and some of the other injuries there. That was the most impressive, I think, defensive performance that an Eagles team under Nick Sirianni has gotten. And yeah, that can be shots fired at Jonathan Gannon if you'd like it to be, but it just was. I mean, they held an excellent offense to, really like 7 points if you consider the offense let up a turnover and gave him a field goal. And then the interception return for a touchdown by Jalen Hurts. The Miami Dolphins offense put up 7 points. So this is a team that we just saw put up 70 on the Broncos, 50 and another, something like stuff like that. So just a really, really all around impressive win by the Eagles.
Yeah, I think I was most impressed by the defense as well. The offense, at times kind of couldn't get out of its own way, again, Eagle offense wise, but the defense really bailed them out. And as you mentioned, probably, yeah, I'd have to say my most impressive win that I've seen the Eagles have in the Nick Sirianni era as well. Let's remind the folks back home that you did pick the Eagles to win 26-24. I had the Dolphins 28-21, and by virtue of that, of course, you hit, I lost. We both now are 5-2 on the season as we have been picking games. You picked Jalen Hurts as your MVP, and I picked Tua as my MVP. I'm going to say we both missed there, Kyle, and I'm going to go with A.J. Brown as the actual MVP of this game. He had a monster game. Let's kind of look at his thing real quick. It was huge. 10 receptions, 137 yards, a touchdown. His longest was 42. He was averaging about 14 yards per catch. Would you say to bet that? Would you agree with me that A.J. Brown was the consensus MVP of this game?
Yeah, you could give it to A.J. Brown. You could also give it to Sean Desai. Like I said, he was working with not much, and I think he got the absolute most that he possibly could have gotten out of them, and that was the unit that you really needed to see step up. But I can't say you're going wrong with A.J. Brown. The guy's an absolute monster, and I remember the T.O. era. I think A.J. Brown right now is putting on the best show that I've ever seen an Eagles wide receiver put on. It's not a slight at T.O. A.J.'s just doing it more consistently and longer T.O. wasn't here for very long. So it's phenomenal stuff what we're watching A.J. Brown. I think it's now like how many straight games where he's got 125 plus yards receiving. That's just dominant stuff. And
I think it's 4.
All to move down the field.
But yeah,
we got a guy. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Other stats from Sunday, notably, the Tua was 23 for 32, 216 yards, touchdown, interception. Jalen Hurts, 23 for 31, a very impressive 279. I mean, he's done 279 yards passing is not to shake a stick at. 2 touchdowns, but he did have that 1 pick. Listen, real quick about Jalen Hurts, and we'll dive deeper into it. Is Jalen Hurts banged up? And I know he's not appearing on any injury report. The Eagles are not talking about that. Jalen has alluded that he might have gotten dinged up a little bit, and he mentioned while in the pocket, and he had made a point to mention it never happens when he runs. I don't know what that is all about, but is Jalen Hurts banged up, and are you concerned?
Well, he's definitely banged up. I mean, there's no question about that. You saw him kind of come up a little bit gimpy at one point during the game, and I know he's wearing a brace, so obviously there's something there. Now, the fact they're not putting him on injury reports either means that there's really no concern whatsoever, or they're about to get in trouble by the league for not really properly reporting their injury practices. And hopefully no one in the commissioner's office is listening right now. But I mean, it's just a weird thing. And the whole thing about him being talking about how it doesn't happen as a runner, I mean, that it's false. We saw him literally get injured against the Chicago Bears on a play, which was an RPO, and he took off, scrambled, went out of the pocket, and got landed on Funky with his shoulder. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know when the exact moment he got his injury was this year, but I did see a video of him landing on his plant leg, his left leg, oddly in the Minnesota game in week 2. And he took a little bit of a while to get up there, and that's the knee that he had the brace on. Again, a play as a runner. I think he's a little bit insecure about the whole running quarterback thing and being a pocket passer and being able to play from the pocket, almost reminiscent of Donovan McNabb and his insecurities and that same thing. So, but it's definitely obvious that something's up now. To what effect that's going to have on him as the season progresses, I don't know, but it is a concerning trend. To answer your second question, that it's now, I guess, 3 seasons in a row where some sort of injury concern with Jalen Hurts pops up.
So you don't think the comment about doesn't happen to me when I run, it's not some sort of insolent child trying to kind of buck the system and try to take a shot at the authority figures who are potentially trying to tamper with his game?
Well, no, I don't think that's anything malicious against the Eagles and the coaching staff and what they're trying to. I don't think he's trying to say that they're putting him in any kind of box. I think he got more at the media talk or whatever, the fan talk about that he's a running back or this and that. I think a lot of quarterbacks that almost get painted into that box are a little bit insecure about that stigma that they're just a running quarterback that they can't throw to win games. And I mean, I agree, but I don't think it's anything to do with you need to change the way that you game plan for me and stuff like that. I just think he's sort of taking a dig at some of the talk that's out there.
Okay, I can buy that. Maybe I'm seeing things wrong because I'm always looking for the negativity and everything. I don't know, but yeah, all right, I'll buy that. Some other stats notable from Sunday. The Eagles did not commit any penalties on Sunday. Amazing. I think it's only the second time they've done that in about 5 years. So kudos to the Philadelphia Eagles on a clean game, literally. No penalties. They did force a turnover. They finally got back in the turnover category, which we'll talk about where that might actually get better going forward as well here in a minute. Now they have 9 turnovers on the season forced as a defense. They did turn the football over 2 more times, which is a trend that's they've now turned the football over in the last 3 weeks for a total of 6 turnovers in those 3 weeks. That brings their total up now to 11. They got to the quarterback 4 times for 17 yards. Now 24 sacks on the season. Jalen was sacked 3 times for 23 yards. And their vaulted red zone proficiency on the day, I believe it was something around 500. There it is right there. They were 4 for 6 in the red zone, which is a trend that's hopefully on the way up. Now for the season, they are 14 for 28, which works out to a hefty 50% effective rate with inside that red zone. And my favorite stat, Kyle Quinn, because I like to kind of break it all down, points by half. They scored 17 points in the first half, and they scored 14 points in the second half, bringing their totals up for the season for 107 points in the first half, 86 points in the second half. Don't tell me I'm crazy, Kyle Quinn, but there's some of the other stats from the weekend. Anything out there grab you? Anything concerning, anything noteworthy, anything that you're optimistic about, and what I just talked about?
Well, the turnover numbers for the offense obviously is something to, at least keep an eye on. It's I wouldn't say it's alarming just yet because, as I mentioned in weeks past, and we're seeing it a little bit to some degree, that those things sort of end up balancing themselves out. I think they'll continue to balance themselves out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to keep your eye on. This is now, I mean, they were the first 2 years of Hurts as a starter. He really didn't turn the ball over at all. That was like his calling card or whatever you want to say. And now he's doing it, to almost like a twice as much clip. So that's definitely something to watch. Other than that, I mean, yeah, it was a clean game penalty wise. I'm sure that'll change when we get a bad officiating crew or we screw up once or twice. Those things will kind of even themselves out too. But other than the turnovers, really, I mean, yeah, just it's a good clean game there. No injuries and the whole second half points thing. Again, they were in a close game at half. So it's interesting that they have to score in the second half to go and win games, man. I don't know about you, but that's a weird trend.
Yeah, but it seems to be separating itself as it does. Don't forget, and by that average in the second half, they're still only scoring 12 points in the second half in 2023. So it's something that, to me, it piques my interest. Just like the runners in scoring position stat piques my interest for the Phillies. And boy, was I right about that. But
let me ask.
Go ahead.
Do you think the second half scoring has been better this year than it was last year?
It seems like it at this point. It seems like they're doing it more out of necessity as they had to last year. Whereas you mentioned, and listen, I'm not immune to the fact that they were ahead so much last season that, yeah, there was probably lots of times where they kind of just went into prevent and really just didn't care. And they were just trying to milk clock. I'm not immune to that. But just because they were doing that doesn't necessarily mean they know how to score second half points when they need to score them, which they've had to have had this year. And so far, they've done enough, kind of. But they go ahead.
What was the Eagles' record at this point last year?
I don't know. Were they undefeated?
It was 7.
They were 7-0.
The Eagles are 6-1 this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Kyle, I understand that. I'm not telling you.
Point that out. I just want to point that out.
And it's taken. I get that, but it does. To me, it makes me curious. And second half is what was the downfall of our season last year. Did you agree or disagree with that?
I mean, sure, but that was more on the defensive side of the ball. The defense couldn't stop a nosebleed in the second half.
But the offense couldn't keep up either. At the end of the day, they couldn't.
The offense matched them score for score until the very end of the game.
Okay, to the very end of the game, they couldn't do it. I'm just saying the point is there, and it's a trend that bodes some attention by me, man. Taking this thing down, I'm riding this to the grave, man. I'm riding it to the grave.
I know you are, and it's getting sad.
Kyle, before we turn the page and look ahead at the Commanders, the Eagles were so one of the things that, of course, that I'm not a big fan of is Howie Roseman. I'll never shy away from criticism to Howie, and I dream of the day where he's no longer here. But due to his unique way of constructing football teams year by year, by signing a lot of players to one-year contracts, he tends to lose some of those players in the following year. But the byproduct of that is a lot of compensatory or little conditional comp draft picks that you can get in order to replace those players. Well, this year, heading into 2024, the Eagles had an abundance of fifth-round draft picks, and they still do have an abundance of those fifth-round draft picks because of some of those lost said free agents. And Howie pulled off a trade with a very unique trade partner, the Tennessee Titans. The Eagles acquired safety Kevin Byard. Is it Byard? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Byard.
Kevin Byard comes in here. Kevin's got a pedigree. He's an all-pro. He's a Pro Bowler. This season, he's got 47 tackles. 30 of them were solos. He's got a fumble recovery. Definitely a pickup to bolster that depleted secondary, which I didn't think they did enough going into the season as is, but now they've made this move. It cost them a fifth-round pick and a fourth-round pick next season. One of those many fifth-round picks, which really at this point, who cares that they gave up a fifth-round pick because they got like 7 of them. I got to give it to Howie on this. At least on the surface, it seems like another really good trade with a very unique trade partner. Why would the Tennessee Titans do business with Howie Roseman, Kyle Quinn? And what is your take on this trade as a whole?
Well, the Titans are just selling everything they possibly can. It wouldn't surprise me to see the Titans make some more trades. They pretty much screwed up. I mean, this is a byproduct of them trading AJ Brown to us, because the minute they did that, they no longer were a contender in the AFC. Not that they really ever were. I always thought they were kind of a joke, but their best chance of being one was gone. AJ Brown walked out the door. They fired the GM, and now it seems like they're going in a direction where they're just going to rebuild the team. I mean, they just drafted Will Levis in whatever the second round or whatever it was this year, so they're going to move in a different direction. I wouldn't surprise me to see some other players get shipped off. And Kevin Byard, yeah, I mean, he's older, he's on the older side, but again, he feels a need, and he's a playmaking safety. So, and also he's a really good locker room guy by all accounts, good leader, Philly guy. So, I think he's going to be a good guy to have around, a good addition on the team, and he really costs much. But I do have a question for you, Matt, because you're still on the anti-Howie Roseman trade. Is there anything Howie can do this year, or anything the team can do this year? What will be the one thing that makes you say, okay, no longer am I saying Howie Roseman's a bad GM, he can stay?
I want to walk with him hand to hand down Broad Street.
Okay, so the only thing he can possibly do is go to the Super Bowl.
No, win the Super Bowl. That's what he can do. That's what it's always been about. That's always been about.
Well, so what your whole thing was last year is that you need to see it be sustained. So if they just went, I mean, to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, would you not consider that very, very impressive by Howie Roseman?
No. I would consider that very, very torturous by Howie Roseman.
That's insanity.
What does mean? So you don't think what's happened to the Phillies this year is just torture? Getting to the World Series and losing on the precipice of going back to another World Series.
No, Matt. Well, that's because they choked to an 84-win Diamondbacks team. It's different. If the Eagles went back to the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs again, I mean, Matt, Howie can't go on there and play the game for them. The team gets to the Super Bowl. They're in the Super Bowl again for 2 years in a row.
But that's not what this town's about. This town's not about second place, Kyle. It's never been about that. It's been about first place. Okay, it's been about our lack of championships that we don't have.
It's about your view of Howie Roseman as a general manager. You think he's a bad general manager. If he brings a team to a Super Bowl, for one, his third time ever, he's going to the Hall of Fame, no question about it. And then
he's going to the Hall of Fame for bringing them to the Super Bowl.
History, not that he isn't already, because he is, but then there will be back-to-back Super Bowls, a feat that's accomplished by I don't know how many teams, so that fits your sustained winning quota. Like it's hard to win.
So you're telling me the Bills general manager from the early 90s, by taking them to 4 Super Bowls and losing all 4 of them, should go to the Hall of Fame?
No question about it. Are you kidding me?
Yes. Are you crazy? No. That's torture on a level of like homicide.
Matt. That has nothing to do with the general manager. He built a team that was able to go all the way to a Super Bowl 4 years in a row. Are you freaking out of your mind, dude?
No, I'm not out of my mind. He built a team that got to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, but they couldn't seal the deal. So obviously there was something missing.
I'm sorry, but you are off your freaking rocker with this, dude.
I can't believe this, man. I can't believe this. We're having this conversation about it's okay to be second place.
You're insane.
What has happened to my city?
Are insane. That's not what it's about. You're talking about whether he's a good general manager or not. Going to the Super Bowl years, let alone 4. Are you nuts? Stop it. Stop.
So you're telling me that all it counts is getting there, not winning it, but getting there.
Call the Bills general manager. I am done with this. This is stupid. Move on.
Oh my
Ridiculous.
God. Wow, Kyle, we've unearthed the disconnect here, man.
Well, I mean,
holy crap.
This is we get to a point of I understand opinions, but then there becomes crazy talk. We can't do the crazy talk. It's crazy talk.
On whose side? I mean, I don't get your acceptance of second place. My demanding first place.
You're the only person in the world who doesn't think that the person who built the teams that went to 4 straight Super Bowls in Buffalo did a bad job. I will tell you right now, you're the only person in the world.
There's probably 100,000 Buffalonians who probably agree with me. I would imagine. So if we took a poll out there in Western New York, I think they'd come out on my side.
To you, what the answer would be.
Okay.
That they would
we should try that, man.
In the most successful period in their team's history, you are out of your mind.
We should go to Buffalo and do that in person.
Yeah, we
Do an
should.
in-person
Well,
poll.
every single person.
I'll do it. Let's do it. Wow. All right, Kyle. Woo. All right. So now the rumors around town are that Howie Roseman may not be done, and that we potentially could be shopping more assets. Potentially, though, I'm hearing a running back might be coming back. I know there's some issues with DeAndre Swift and his durability, and obviously a running back room of Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott scares the hell out of me too. But what about Rashad Penny? Does he even still play for the Philadelphia Eagles? And are we kind of just was this a bad move by His Highness Howie Roseman because the guy doesn't get on the field? As far as the running back rumors, is that something you think Howie is looking at? Do you think he's looking another way? Do you think he's done? Where do you think we're going from here? We got about a week or a little less than a week till the trade deadline.
Yeah, so I don't think he's done. I think he's picking up the phone and listening to every single offer and asking about every single player that might be available, as good general managers do. But I agree with you that running back is a need on this team. I mean, DeAndre Swift is an injury-prone player, and the two guys behind Gainwell and Scott, you're not comfortable with if those are going to have to be the two guys leading the charge. And as for Rashad Penny, I mean, he clearly stinks. They're telling us all we need to know about him when they make him a healthy scratch on game days, and that's the running back room that we have. Now, in terms of is that a bad move by Howie Roseman, they signed him for a ham sandwich. So I don't really see where the risk versus reward comes down in a bad way on that. But do I think he might look to add to the running back room? Yeah, I mean, I could see it. Wouldn't surprise me if he made another deal for cheap, similar to like he did with Jay Ajayi 2017. I could see him adding some offensive line depth, linebacker, maybe another secondary piece. He's going to be looking at every hole in this roster and doing whatever he can, as good general managers do, Matt, to fix those holes and put the team in the best position to win yet again.
Or in your rationale, you get to the Super Bowl. And it doesn't really matter about winning it. We just got to get there, and it's a successful season. All right, we have to move on. We're going to spend way too much time talking about this.
I don't understand what you think the general manager's capabilities are. Like, if he
I tell you what, Kyle, let's settle this once and for all. You talk to your boy tomorrow, both your boys tomorrow.
On him, right? That's on the guys that are on the field. They have to go and play the game, right? Now, if you have a machine that's able to go deep, right, that looks good on the general manager. Now, in terms of a game, any given Sunday, Matt, as we say, if you're talking about losing a game, when do we ever get on here and say, who do you blame for this loss? Oh, Howie Roseman. It doesn't happen. If the team
I do it every week.
If the team sucks and they're 4-12, we say Howie Roseman, that's his fault, and that's warranted. But we never come on here on a Monday when they lose and say Howie Roseman lost in this game, because it's not reasonable.
Yes, it is reasonable. Howie Roseman built the team from the coaching staff down. It's Howie Roseman, right?
Ridiculous. Honestly.
But did he not build this team? Or did Nick Sirianni just show up and say, I want to be the coach? And did Howie Roseman like recruit these people? Did he interview them? Did he sign the contracts? He's the money guy. He's all that, right?
I don't understand how you can blame him for literally a game that happens in the span of 60 minutes. Like, that's control. You understand that, right?
Do you blame Chuck Fletcher for the demise of the Flyers?
Chuck Fletcher, do I blame? No, I blame the ownership, actually.
Okay, then why is Chuck Fletcher out of a job?
Because he sucked. That's not they're not really things, Matt. You're comparing Howie Roseman to Chuck Fletcher. Listen to yourself, dude. This is getting.
I am listening to myself. I'm trying to I'm actually trying to crawl into your head, and it's hard to get in there. But
if fall into my head, it'll be the greatest revelation of your life, my friend. Honestly.
Listen to me. Tomorrow, you can do it off the air. You don't have to do it on the air. Talk to Giglio. Talk to Hugh Douglas. Ask them that if the GM of the Buffalo Bills, who took them to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
I'm gonna laugh at you.
Oh, I don't care. I would love to hear what they have to say.
Matt, do you know why I'm not going to ask them that? Because they're going to think I'm an idiot.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. You don't have to, but I'm just saying. I feel, I get it. But we're all entitled to our opinions. It's just that I happen to be right, and you happen to be living in fantasy land.
We're all entitled. Some are misguided and idiotic, like yours.
So do you blame? So who do you blame for the Phillies' demise? Rob Thompson or the players?
I blame the players.
Okay, so did Rob Thompson have an opportunity or a responsibility to check his players and to attempt to fix the situation, or he just lets the thing go right and lets it ride?
What comparison is this? Rob Thompson is not the general manager of the team. And
so do you blame Dave Dombrowski for not building a more competitive bench to have any kind of offensive options off that bench? Or do you blame Dave Dombrowski for bringing a pitcher here and a 4-year contract in Taijuan Walker that never threw a ball in the postseason?
Yeah,
or a pitcher, Michael Lorenzen, who appeared twice in
Matt,
the entire postseason.
Matt, those things are all fair. But who was the first person or the first two people that you were like cursing the day after the Phillies lost in the NLCS? It was not Dave Dombrowski. It was the players, and it was Rob Thompson. Dave Dombrowski falls way lower on the list of people that you blame for it. It's just true, and you know it is.
No, to me, it's married together. They're all in the same bed. Honestly,
not though, because there is a hierarchy of blame, and there always is, and you know it.
No, I don't. I think it. No, I'm
Matt,
an equal opportunity blamist.
Every loss, there always is. There always is. Is it more Alvarado's fault, or is it more Craig Kimbrell's fault that he blew Game 4?
Or is it more Dave Dombrowski's fault for bringing Kimbrell here in the first place?
Right. Okay. Yeah. But nobody blamed Dombrowski the day after Kimbrell blew it. They all said, screw Kimbrell, right?
Oh, I said right? Dombrowski too. No, I blame Dombrowski.
Dombrowski's in a breath until after the NLCS was over. I don't want to hear it. Enough.
Man. Oh wow. This is some biting stuff, Kyle. I appreciate this, man. But I think we're miles apart on this issue, and I don't think we'll ever get in the same ballpark. I hate to say the baseball thing, but I think they're all married together. I think obviously the players at the end of the day are the ones who have to perform. I get that. But the manager is the one who has to check that performance and hold them accountable. The general manager is the one that has to hire the right manager that does check the right players, doesn't make the right decisions, and then brings the right players here to begin with in order to put them in a position to succeed.
Matt,
I agree with you.
Do you think Dave Dombrowski is a good general manager?
Again, based on my rationale, no, because he hasn't done what I want him to do. We don't have a World Series championship.
Bar is way, way, way too high, my friend. That's all I'm going to say. That's it.
What, to win a championship? The bar is too high?
Matt, it's absurd. Your bar is higher than literally anybody else ever. Like if
I want to win.
Matt, if you were the owner, I want. Fire somebody every year, I guarantee it. You'd be off your rocker.
I don't want to fire somebody every year, but I want answers to my investment, because I invest in these teams. My money, my time, my devotion, my love. And then right now I'm getting screwed because they're not upholding their end of the deal.
Howie Roseman,
I want answers.
Howie Roseman screwing you, Matt?
He is. He lost the Super Bowl.
Dude, come on, man. But the 6-1. They're the only glimmer of light that Philadelphia has right now after what the Phillies did, and you're mad at Howie Roseman. Come on.
The Sixers are starting tonight, so we know there's always new eternal hope.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle. Okay, listen. Let's get on to the Commanders, man. This is good stuff, though. I love it. That's why I love having you here, man. All right. Sunday, the Eagles will renew their relationship with the Commanders. It's the second time that we'll play. This time down there was it still FedEx Field?
I believe
down there. And then Landover. Redskins will the Commanders will be going with their burgundy tops and their white bottoms. The Eagles will be going with the Wentz whites. I think it's a first half or second half type of thing. I remember seeing them wear the Wentz whites after Halloween. So maybe it's a first half, second half thing. The weather in Landover on Sunday is supposed to be a balmy 76 in late October, and a little humid and a little cloudy. So it might be an interesting day. I don't know in terms of rain. Kyle, before we break the injury report down, I want to talk about the first time the Eagles played the Commanders. Sam Howell kind of went off a little bit. Is there some concern that we're going to get that Sam Howell, or is there some concern that we won't get that Sam Howell before we get into the injury report?
If I had to bet money, I would say we get a different Sam Howell, just based off of what I know from Washington and the buzz from down there is that they're like another bad performance away from putting him on the bench entirely, Sam Howell. He's been really bad since that Eagles game. But, on the contrary, you can also say that Eagles are like maybe he has something on the Eagles or he plays well against the Eagles. I mean, you just don't know. I do think Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, is somebody that should have our alarms ringing. He was the offensive coordinator with the Chiefs. They had a great game playing against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And then with the Commanders in that first matchup that we played them. So he would be the one more than Sam Howell that I think the Eagles need to be wary of.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Sam Howell kind of captures some lightning in the bottle. I don't necessarily see him replicating that performance. And of course, we have tape on him from that first performance. And we do have a little bit more of a, I guess they're more back together than they were in the first time they met. We're minus a few players, but we've added some players since then too. Eagles injury report, Bradley Roby. We barely knew you. You got here and then you got hurt. Dealing with a shoulder injury, did not practice today. Unknown right now his status. Reed Blankenship is trending in the right direction, but he's got a rib injury. You really can't put a timeline on those. Those are really painfully lingering injuries. His status is unknown, but he was a full participant in practice today. Milton Williams is dealing with a heel problem, status unknown. He had limited participation in practice today. On the Eagles side of things, Kyle, with those injuries or something else that might be maybe on your mind, how do you feel about our status health-wise heading into this game?
Yeah, it's definitely better. I mean, you're not seeing the usual suspects on the injury report from the weeks prior, besides Reed Blankenship, who's a full participant. It's going to be good to get him back. Bradley Roby, yeah, I mean, it stinks that we haven't really gotten to be able to see him because I think he's a pretty decent player when he's healthy, and I'm curious to see what the secondary looks like at full strength. I mean, I know Maddox, we're going to have to just count as not a part of the roster at this point anymore. So I'm curious to see what they look like when they have Byard back there, Blankenship, Slay, Bradbury, and Roby. I think that's a pretty formidable unit, much better than the one that we started the season with. So definitely happy to get Reed Blankenship back. In terms of the other guys, I mean, it seems like pretty much everybody's full go at this point.
Yeah, and then for the Commanders, this is big. Their offensive lineman, Shaquille Charles, dealing with a calf injury. He did not participate in practice. Status is unknown. He's only played 2 games this season. I'm not really certain if he's going to be involved in this game. Samuel Cosme, again, he's also dealing with a hip injury. He was limited in practice this day. Cody Barton, their linebacker, dealing with an ankle problem, did not practice today. Cole Turner, the tight end, ankle was limited. And Fedarian Mathis, the defensive tackle, calf, but he also was a full participant in practice for the Commanders today. Again, Commanders side of things, some interesting names there that you may have to keep an eye on in terms of the Commanders' health.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the final injury report looks like Friday, but nobody really like overly notable or somebody who I think has a major impact on the game from that side of the ball. It looks like they're going to be out.
All right, Kyle, with all that being said, we have a 1 o'clock, one of them rare 1 o'clock games, Kyle. We're starting to get down to the end of our 1 o'clock time frames. I believe the next one is like week 17 is the Arizona game here in Philly. So this is it, Kyle. Yep. So enjoy the sunlight while you can because this is going to be the end of that for quite a bit. But what do you think is going to happen down there in Landover, Maryland on Sunday?
So I haven't checked the line on it recently, but I think it might have opened at 6.5. The Eagles are 6.5 point favorites, around touchdown favorites. I expect it to be a little bit closer than that, just based off of the last few matchups where the Eagles played Washington. And like I said, I do think Eric Bieniemy usually has a good scheme for the things that the Eagles like to do on defense. And then, conversely on offense, I mean, the Commanders clearly have a plan that they try to stick with. It's run the ball and feed Terry McLaurin. A guy who just absolutely kills us. But I do think the Eagles will get the better of Washington again. I don't think it's going to be as close and as like thrilling and nearly heartbreaking as it was when we had to beat them in overtime. I don't think it's going to take overtime, but I do think it's going to be definitely, I would say, like a 1 possession game, I think, by the end. But I see this more as like the Eagles holding the ball and icing the game as opposed to Washington making it scary at the end. But I do see the Eagles coming away with a victory here.
And with that being said, Kyle, what are your 3 keys to Eagles victory?
Yeah, so I'm purely basing this off of the very last time that we played them. It wasn't that long ago. And really the biggest issues were the Eagles getting carved up on the back end. And one of those things had to do with Terry McLaurin, who just they're going to need to have a game plan for Terry McLaurin. I don't know if it's just a bad matchup for Darius Slay, but whatever the case may be, they are going to need to give him help. I know he might be a little stubborn, likes to guard guys one-on-one, but we cannot let Terry McLaurin be the reason that Washington and Sam Howell carving us up. And then also, they're going to have to get to Sam Howell a little bit more than they did the last time. I know they got to him a few times, but they didn't seem like they were the most like consequential sacks. And I know definitely still leads the league in sacks. That's been one of the worst things about him, and that's one of the reasons why they want to bench him. So let's be the reason that Sam Howell gets benched this season, and let's sack the living hell out of him. Then third, you want to see that turnover number sort of creep back toward at least either the mean or a little more in the Eagles' favor. You want to see them turn it over less when they're on offense, specifically from Jalen Hurts. And then, maybe we can see the Eagles force some turnovers on defense. That's obviously the number one way for them to not let a lesser team hang around them. The interesting thing is about last week is that they lost the turnover battle to the Dolphins and still handed them their ass. So that just shows you what this Eagles team is really capable of when they're firing on most, if not all, cylinders. So I think we're going to see another sort of version of that Eagles team this week. I think the turnovers are going to go back more towards our favor, and if we're able to stop Terry McLaurin and limit Sam Howell's time in the pocket, then I think we're going to come away with a win here.
Yeah, and my 3 keys to Eagle victory. I think we just got to continue with the play calling has been getting better. I still don't like the creativity in the red zone, but it's better. It's getting better. But I have been liking the involvement of Dallas Goedert in the Eagles' offensive game plan. I think it needs to continue. It provides more space for Jalen to operate in. It provides more space for the wide receivers to operate in. It just provides a more open passing attack. So I think that continued involvement of Dallas Goedert is my number 3 key to Eagle victory. My number 2 key to Eagle victory is don't play down to your competition, for God's sakes. The Redskins are not a good football. Commanders are not a good football team. They're 3-4. They're the outlier, or they're the other half of the division. They don't belong in a conversation right now that about division or conference contenders. Treat them as such. Put a dead dog down or a dying dog down. Just don't let them hang around. Punch them in the mouth. Make them wilt underneath the late October heat, I guess, there in Maryland. So put a dead dog or dying dog down. And then red zone proficiency, was really liking the fact that it got better. 50% effective is not something I'm writing home about, but we got to continue to work on that. Got to get touchdowns. Got to get used to scoring touchdowns. We can no longer settle for field goals. We're getting into that portion of the schedule where a field goal just to me is not going to cut it. We got to keep pushing that end zone.
So the red zone thing for you, Matt, specifically is going to be a little bit of a double-edged sword, because if they do convert on those red zone possessions early in the game, then that might eliminate the need for them to start scoring in the second half. But
yeah, I'm prepared for that.
Washington, the confidence, or even the idea that they are going to be one of those teams that can hang with us and be that trap game sort of team in the division, the one that plays well against us. We kind of have to end that, sort of like the Phillies ended it with the Marlins a few years ago. The Eagles have to end that with Washington this week.
I agree, and I think that's really that seems to be a theme. I think it was not that they were. I don't know. They might have been smelling themselves against the Jets. There's just no. It just doesn't work out that the talent on the roster of the Eagles lost to the talent on the roster of the Jets, and to me, it doesn't work out that the talent on the roster of the Eagles will lose to the Commanders. It just doesn't work out to me. It doesn't. So again, I think you're right. We need to keep them down. With that being said, go ahead.
I don't disagree. I would just say I think the Jets are a little more talented than you might be giving them credit for. Commanders, totally 100% agree. You can't let them feel like they're anywhere close to our caliber. The Jets, really, just Zach Wilson is the one that's really dragging that roster down. But that's how the Jets play, and their record isn't really horrible. They're actually sort of hanging in there. So, that one, I think it's good though that they came out and played the way they did against Miami, because now you can just say,
right,
any Sunday things happen.
So do you think the Jets are a Super Bowl contender with Aaron Rodgers?
It certainly looks that way. You would have to almost think that if Aaron, you're operating under the assumption that Aaron Rodgers is going to play the way that we come to
prime Aaron Rodgers,
play, not the Aaron Rodgers from last year where it seemed things sort of went downhill. I was a little skeptical at first, but it's starting to seem like they truly are just a quarterback away from being a true contender. They're hanging around, and even with Zach Wilson being as bad as he is, that defense is nothing to sneeze at all, man. Tough, no joke. The offensive line, not great. Probably part of the reason why Aaron Rodgers got hurt on 4 snaps at the beginning of the season in the first place. But I do think there's something there for sure in that roster.
Okay. And with that being said, Kyle, what is your prediction, your score, and your MVP?
All right. So I'm, like I said, I think it's going to be a little bit closer than we or than other people make it out to be, than the sports books are making it out to be. I think it's going to be a 4-point win. So I'll go 31 again to 27 Eagles. The Commanders don't end up getting that final touchdown to win the game. I think the Eagles are going to end up icing it. And look, I don't know if I've done this every week so far.
You have.
finally happens and we can both settle in on the fact that Jalen Hurts was the MVP of the football game. And I'm going to nail that one of these weeks, Matt. Nail it. And no one's going
Well,
to
if you pick them every week, it's bound to happen, man. The odds are in your favor. So, I mean,
broken clock twice a day,
yeah.
So cool with that.
All right, so 31-27 Eagles. I, too, believe the Eagles will win this football game. I don't think there's much doubt there. I say 34-17. I think this is one of those games where I think the Eagles do send a message early and often. And I don't know. I just don't think the Commanders have much bite. And if we can get up on top of them early, maybe we coast to a second half where we don't have to score any points. So I got the Eagles 34-17. And I too, I'm going with Jalen Hurts as my MVP.
There we go. All right, so you're cutting the legs out from under me so that I can't come on and say I got Jalen Hurts the MVP because you also predict Jalen Hurts the MVP.
So we're both gonna go down on this one together if that's the case. Kyle, last thing, of course, now to the question of the week, and it is. I seem like feels like we've already done the segment, but we'll get into a question of the week again, more driven towards the overall Philadelphia sports landscape here in late October. I mentioned at the beginning of the program, was it maybe something that you're using to help you through this period of time, knowing that you have meaningful Eagle football ahead of you. I'm going to kind of use the Phillies situation as my question of the week, and we're going to use it as an Eagle thing. A lot of talk this week about the Phillies being a historical collapse in Game 7 of the NLCS. With that being said, what is your number one Eagle collapse of all time?
Oof. Well, I'm going to have to think of a game. You got to go back to, if I'm comparing it to this Phillies thing, going against a team that they should not have lost to, a situation that was pretty much hand-cut, tailor-made for them to go walk right in and take it. And it has to remind you of the 2002 Tampa Bay Bucks to close out the vet. The Bucks are old; they're not as good of a team. The Eagles have been here before, all that stuff, and they came in here and look at us that way, and they handled business. It's very, very similar to how the Diamondbacks just came into Philadelphia and said, "No, we don't care about the crowd. We don't care about Philly. None of that. We're not coming over here to get our butts kicked." And they didn't. Credit to them. As unfortunate as it is, but I think that's got to be the closest comp for me. If I'm going Eagles Phils, it's got to be the 0-2.
Yeah, I'll never forget where I was. I'll never forget the state of mind I was in that 0-2 game. You're right. There was nobody on the face of the earth, with the exception, of course, of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who believed they had a shot in that game. And never forget it. Fell to my knees, literally, in a bar room in Northeast Philly when that interception is that last play of the game. So
that's tough,
yes,
man.
I did. Yeah, it was a rough day, and it was cold, man, bitter cold. It was like -10 or something outside. It was freaking freezing.
Tough, man. These are the things that shape us, though. This one we just added as another notch on the belt, man. Another toughie.
No. I thought if they would have beaten Tampa, they would have mopped the floor up with the Raiders in the Super Bowl. It was a Super Bowl 15 rematch. It had everything, man. It was supposed to happen, man.
Always too good to be true in Philly.
Yeah, but all right, Kyle. Listen, I'm all about transparency. The folks at home know that this is not Monday night, but we will be back Monday live because of the fact that there's no more scheduling conflict with the Phillies. We'll have to work around scheduling conflicts with the Eagles. But before I let you go, Kyle, where can the good people find you out there?
Yep. So you always turn the dial from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on weekdays, 94 WIP. That's where catch me. I'm producing with Joe, Gilio, and Hugh Douglas. And then on Twitter at Kyle_Quinn, WIP.
All right, Kyle. Have a good weekend. We'll talk Monday, man.
My man. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too, man. All right, Kyle Quinn in the Birds Breakdown segment with Kyle Quinn here on the program. And actually, I have to congratulate or thank Kyle for giving me a perfect segue into my next topic. Obviously, it's funny that we had that little back and forth about what's going on with my microphone. We had a little back and forth about what success equals, and what truly it's all about. And all the pain and suffering that we as Eagles and Philadelphia sports fans in general have had to endure, and yet all the obnoxiousness that we spew out to the rest of the people when we have such little cash to back it up. makes us who we are, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Well, I wouldn't have my Philadelphia sports fandom any other way, but I would trade it a little bit for some goddamn hardware. But we will not be any closer. We could a different hemisphere apart on his assertion or assumption of what success is when it comes to sports. In no sphere of my existence do I believe that a general manager that takes a football team to a Super Bowl 4 straight years and loses 4 straight years is deservingly of a Hall of Fame bid. And I guarantee you, if I hit the streets of Buffalo, which I think I'm going to, I think Kyle has thrown the gauntlet down, and I may have to go to Buffalo and do a poll. But I have to be careful. I have to do it with the right age group, because this was back in the 90s, and people my age now are the ones that endured that. But I would love to know what the people of Buffalo think about that. I know how I would think. I'd want to run that guy up a flagpole, not and I don't even know who the hell it is. So I have to do some research. But Kyle has thrown the gauntlet down, and I think I may have to back it up. So be on the lookout for that, EOP. But yeah, no, I cannot disagree with him more. And that leads me into my final, or into the Phillies. Again, I've waited all week long, really. I've come out and throw some jabs and some barbs. We had a little back and forth there with Kyle about the Phillies, but now it's my turn to unleash what I think happened on this week, or what was it, the other night, Tuesday or Monday? Was it Monday? I don't even remember. It was Tuesday, or Monday and Tuesday, actually. Embarrassment. Nothing more than sheer embarrassment. We should be embarrassed as sports fans. We should be embarrassed as Phillies fans. The Phillies organization, from Dave Dombrowski on down to the guy that cleans the batting helmets, should be embarrassed. And the city of Philadelphia should be embarrassed in front of the national spotlight, because there's no justification to what went down this past week or this past 10 days against the Arizona Diamondbacks, other than to say that we were obnoxious about it, we were overconfident about it, and that we, once again, just were not prepared to seal the deal. And that's not what championship teams are. The Philadelphia Phillies are not a championship team. I'm not saying they don't have good pieces, and I'm not saying they don't have something that we can build into a championship team, but they're not a championship team. You don't go to back-to-back postseasons, losing a World Series one year and then follow that up with a heartbreaking collapse, choke effort against the Arizona Diamondbacks in the NLCS, and expect me and maybe a lot of other true Philadelphia sports fans, not these gentler, kinder, no past pain to draw from. They have the history book pain of a Philadelphia sports fan, but they don't have the perspective of having to have lived through some of this stuff. But there's no true Philadelphia sports fan out there that can sit down and think about what happened to the Philadelphia Phillies and not come to a few conclusions of their own about the status of this team. They are not a championship team. They got pieces. They are a playoff team, but they're not a championship team. And it has nothing to do with making the playoffs. It has nothing to do with your ability to get to the NLCS or to the Super Bowl unless you finish the flipping job. There is no points for second place. I don't make that rule. That's the way life is. You never remember the guy that came in second. You always remember the guy who came in first. That's just the way it is. And I judge and I live my life under that same banner. I want to be the New York Yankees. I want to be the Patriots, the 49ers, the Edmonton Oilers of the NHL, the Lakers and the Celtics of the NBA. I want that shit. And it's a kick in the gut every time we fall short. 2 championships in 140 years. Do the math. Oh, I carry the 2. Well, that means 1 every 70 years. Don't know about you, folks. I guess it won't be 70 years. What, 18? 1921, 22. It's 15 years removed since the last one. So what? 55 years? I don't have 55 years. Or I'm sorry, what? 35 years? Yeah, 55 years. I don't have 55 years left in me. I'd be 105 when they win their next. All right? I don't have that kind of time. And I don't have that kind of fucking patience. It was an embarrassment. Everything from the decisions that this manager made by bringing in Kirkling in high pressure, high leverage situations to going back to Kimbrel on, after blowing one game, he comes back the next night and he blows the second game. When Kimbrel all season long, his velocity and his stuff was not there whenever he pitched back-to-back nights. But this guy decides, you know what? That's going to change in the NLCS by not making any adjustments to that lineup. Aside from game 2, and I'm going to wait for that. I'll get into that in a second. No adjustments to the lineup. On what planet does Alec Bohm bat fourth? He's not a 4. He's a 2. He's a 2 or he's a 6 or he's a 7. He's not a 4. And I don't want to hear that cleanup doesn't exist anymore and this analytic crap. It's crap, man. He's not a cleanup hitter on the same way that Kyle Schwarber is not a leadoff hitter. The man batted sub 200 for the season. All he is good for is literally hitting home runs. But we got him at the top of the lineup because because that's what his psyche supports. Embarrassment. We are a national joke. Our manager's a joke. The way we flamed out is a joke. And there should be a lot of pissed off people. Because windows of opportunity and windows of winning, they don't stay open forever. The Phillies window is open still. But each year and with each failure, we fall back further. Lost in the World Series last year. Lost in the NLCS this year. What's next? No in-game adjustments were made by the manager. No accountability of his players was made by the manager as the series was imploding in front of his eyes. The wild swinging of Trey Turner, Nick Castellanos, Bryce Harper, Alec Bohm, none of it was addressed. The running of the mouth of Garrett Stubbs after game 2 is so annoying and so negligent and so immature. He needs to go. Losers. That's what the Phillies are. It's reality. Are there pieces there? There are pieces there. But we're going to run back the same thing next year. You know that, right? You know that, right? Okay, Dave Dombrowski, as I mentioned, Rob Thompson and Sam, was it Fiend, the GM, had their end of season press conference today. Thursday or yesterday. Where they basically kind of, as I said, briefly at the top of all this, it's disappointing, but we feel that we're in a good spot. You know what? That might be true, and I think that there's some pieces here. But they're never going to tell you it's an embarrassment. We should be embarrassed. We're embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to sit here and talk to you. This is embarrassing. We blow a 2-0 series lead, and then we blow a 3-2 series lead by losing the last 2 games at home. It's a friggin' embarrassment. Rob Thompson's coming back. Yep. They made some minor changes. They fired their bullpen coach and they fired their assistant hitting coach. They're going to attempt potentially to make some free agent moves. And I'm not going to get into the free agent situation. Obviously, Nola, Hoskins, Kimbrel, Lorenzen, notable free agents that are pending. I'm not going to get into all that to another show. That's not what this is about. This is about lamenting and spewing my venom about the national embarrassment the Philadelphia Phillies have caused not only me in this city and its thousands and millions of loyal fans who brought an advantage to that ballpark that I've never seen before and wasted it and threw it in the toilet, but an embarrassment to the sport of baseball what Rob Thompson did with the 2023 Phillies. I hate analytics. I will take a baseball manager who manages with his gut every single time over an analytical robot. I will never use analytics. I despise analytics. They're horrible. And just to give you some ideas, now it's time for me to pull out the stat sheet. In this series, just this series, excluding game 2, where the Phillies scored 10 runs, mainly by the long ball, the Phillies batted .159 with runners in scoring position. 7 for 44 in this series, excluding game 2. 1-59. This is a Major League Baseball team playing in the National League Championship Series, and they batted .159. And they didn't make any changes to the lineup at all. And I'm the crackpot for the postseason as a whole, to include the Wild Card Series, the National League Division Series, and all of the NLCS, the Phillies were 24 for 107 with runners in scoring position. A .224 batting average with runners in scoring position for a team that made a deep run to Game 7 of the National League Championship Series. Embarrassing. This team's inability to get runners in from second base, and I'm not talking, second base with 2 outs. No. I'm talking second base with 1 out, runners on first and third with 1 out, and their inability to drive in that run was not frustrating throughout the playoffs for me, but it was frustrating throughout the regular season because, as you know, I am involved in the Titans final. And by the way, I said this on Facebook a couple of days ago, right after the game, right after the loss, 175 games the Titans final did this year for our second season. And unlike the first season, I had help. I had Mike, Pat, and Al who joined the team this year and basically picked up the slack for me because I disappeared for a few weeks during the summer up to Cooperstown to do my umpiring thing. And they came up and they came and they answered the bell better than I could have ever anticipated or imagined. And a heart thank you to them. 175 games we did as a crew. So by nature of that, each one of us did a game, or each one of us did whatever amount of games, but we also, every week, we were assigned a series, meaning that we had to take a series and write an article about it when the series was over. You'll see them all over the EOP website. So we had no choice, the majority, or all of us, to be very tuned in to what the Phillies were doing this season. So a lot of people experienced the pain of the NLCS, of some of the frustrations, and maybe they weren't tuned in to some of those frustrations that they were seeing for maybe the first time on a consistent basis without being able to score runners, striking out in droves, swinging at everything. That might have been new to some fans that weren't concentrating on the game. And it probably wasn't for a lot of other people who have been concentrating. But for us, there was nothing new about it. It was the same story from the season. Just bear with me. For the season, the Phillies, okay, and I've done this on the show. I've done it on the final many times. 358 for 1,346. 266 batting average with runners in scoring position. If you're not batting 270 or higher, you're not a Major League Baseball team with runners in scoring position. The Phillies finished around 15th in MLB in runners and scoring runs with runners in scoring position. About middle of the pack. And this is a team that went into Game 7 of the National League Championship Series on the strength of the home run. Live by the home run, die by the home run. But no adjustments were made. And Dave Dombrowski, as me and Kyle kind of went back and forth a few times about it, he definitely holds a huge part of the responsibility for this. He was the one that decided that Andrew Painter was the wave of the future in 2023, that we were going to take a kid from Double-A Reading, insert him into the starting rotation in 2023, and then he was going to be fine with no backup playing. Now, Andrew Painter got hurt, so we never even seen Andrew Painter. Then, couple that with an injury to the Ranger, we started out the season down 2 starting pitchers. Remember the rotation at the beginning of the year? It was what? Wheeler, Nola, Walker, Strom, and Falter. Remember that? We ended up getting Suarez back, and we ended up piddling through until Christopher Sanchez got healthy, and we ended up kind of stabilizing that rotation. But it was the wrong plan into last offseason when you had an injured Bryce Harper, who, he was going to come back early. But what was he going to be? So the plan was to continue to strengthen the offense and ignore the pitching. Bear with me. The bench. The bench. No one's talking about this. Nobody mentions the bench. But when you're in a situation where your last hope of the season, your final hope, your last at bat, rests on the bat and the shoulders of Jake Cave, something ain't right. Embarrassing that he was the best offensive option that we had coming off our bench, who literally held the season in his hands. And he flies out. The bench was not properly addressed last offseason. Now I get why. I understand the bench has changed dramatically since the adoption of the DH in the National League. I understand that. It's more defensively driven to have replacements on the bench because you're not necessarily going to use too many pinch hitters anymore because the pitcher doesn't bat. So I understand that that's changed. But to go to a totally devoid of any offensive options, Garrett Stubbs, Edmundo Sosa, Christian Pache, Jake Cave, those were our offensive options off the bench. Dombrowski went out and added Castro at the All-Star or the trade deadline. You remember the Bailey Falter trade? I don't even think Castro was on the damn postseason roster. I bitched about this in the beginning of the season that he didn't do enough with the bench, and he never addressed it at all. And the pitching. The trade deadline, second straight year that we went after a pitcher at the trade deadline that did absolutely nothing for us in the postseason. Okay, let me strike that. Noah Syndergaard cost us something in the postseason last year. Lorenzen did nothing. He appeared in 2 games, threw maybe 25 pitches. That was the big trade deadline acquisition. A guy that does not contribute at all in the postseason, but 2 appearances. Embarrassment. That's simply what it was. And there's nobody going to sit here and talk to me about the positives of getting to where we got. 2 world championships in 140 years. Philadelphia, here's my deal. I don't know where you went off the rails, but when I was growing up, it was everything to do about the championships because we were tired of watching the San Francisco 49ers. We were tired of watching the Yankees, the Dodgers, the A's, the Twins, the Cardinals. We were tired of watching the Lakers and the Celtics. We were tired of watching the Edmonton Oilers dance around at the end of the season while we stood there with our hands in our you-know-whats. It's got nothing to do with getting there. That is such a loser attitude and a defeatist attitude. It makes me actually physically ill. It's about winning it. And anything short of winning it is a failure. I can't explain it to any more specific than that. What occurred this week, or what occurred in the NLCS, was a national embarrassment to the city of Philadelphia, to the Philadelphia sports fan, and to the Philadelphia Phillies. And now we have the next 4 months to think about it. The pieces are there. The decision to retain the manager is wrong. He's a loser. He doesn't have the stones to win a World Series. How many more tries is he going to get? He's got 2. And if I see Kyle Schwarber bat lead off, I'm turning in my Philadelphia fandom. That's it. I'm done. Kyle Schwarber or Nick Castellanos must be moved in the offseason. We need players that can hit to all fields. We're going to need some arms in the bullpen. We don't have that much money. We're losing money because we keep getting penalized by the luxury tax. We keep losing comp picks for it. We keep losing money from our international signing pool because we're over the luxury tax. It's going to get us. We got to get creative. Schwarber and or Castellanos need to get moved this offseason to get us some flexibility, to get us some batters, to get us some real hitters, not a bunch of friggin' gorillas up there swinging for the fences every time. Dave Dombrowski said it. He'd rather lead the league in doubles than in home runs. Well, put your money where your mouth is, because right now you've built me a team that all they do is hit home runs. And they have the inability to drive runners in scoring position. You want to hear some more stats from the NLD or from the postseason, not the NLDS? I will give you more stats from the postseason. Here we go. Back to some of the numbers. Remember, let's go through them all. It's my dime. I'll do what I want. Errors. This postseason, the Phillies committed 7. Their opponents committed 8. I can live with that. That was pretty good. They played pretty well defensively. There were some gaffes, but I'm okay with it. They grounded into 9 double plays. That's a little high for 13 games. 9 double plays. That's very high. They stole 16 bases, which was, before the last 2 games of this series, they were swiping bases at an epic rate. Game 6, they stole 1 base, and they didn't steal anything on Game 7 because I don't think they really had runners in that position, or they tried. I don't know. They finished with 16 stolen bases. Their opponents finished with 11. That number was elevated because of what happened to Game 6 and Game 7 to the best catcher in baseball, and JT Realmuto, who allowed 8 Diamondbacks to score bases or to steal bases against him in Game 6 and 7. 4 in Game 6 and 4 in Game 7. 8 for the BCIB. Oh, Logan O'Hoppe, where have you gone? Home runs. Yeah, you know what? It's very publicized. 24 home runs in 13 games, almost 2 a game. They hit the crap out of the ball. They only gave up 8. I can live with that. Phillies pitching struck out 119 batters. The Phillies as a team struck out 120 times. They struck out over 9 times a game. I will never, ever accept that as an acceptable form of baseball in the United States. This is our national pastime. This is the sport that this country is known for. And we got a team that strikes out over 9 times a game. Shove the analytics up your friggin' ass. That's too high. It's undisciplined. It's not good coaching. It's horrible managing. For the season, the team struck out 1,471 times. Guess how many times that's a game? Take a wild guess. It's over 9. Over 9 times a game. 1 time through the lineup. Strikes out every game. And I had to accept that. Are you crazy? Continuing on. Phillies pitchers walked 31 opponents in this playoff. Actually, I can live with that. It's less than 2.5 a game. The Phillies as batters walked 50 times. 50 times. Almost 4 a game. How do you strike out 9 times a game and walk 4 times a game? How do you do that? And then lose in game 7? How is this possible? Phillies hit 105 hits, 8 a game. They gave up 91, 7 a game. Left 24 runners. They were 24 for 107 with runners in scoring position for a 224 batting average. They left 82 runners on base, 6 a game. Now, that's not runners in scoring position. That's just a general, total, first, second, and third. They left 83 runners on bases throughout 13 games in the playoffs. 6.3 a game. Too high. By half. Should be 3, 4 at the most. For the season, they left 1,098 runners on base, 7 a game. You strike out 9 times a game. You're leaving 7 runners on base a game. You're batting .266 for the season with runners in scoring position, but you win 90 games and you hit like 200 home runs. They don't know how to hit. But we're going to run back the manager. Let's bring him back because he deserves it. Come here, Robbie. Well, have you met Howie? You guys should get to know each other. Oh, by the way, there's Nick Sirianni. Nobody's won anything. But we have to accept it. They scored. They scored 61 runs and they gave up 31. So they were like 4.7 runs a game versus 2.4. So almost 2-1. They outscored their opponent and then lost in the NLCS. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment and it's shameful. And we should be ashamed. And the Phillies should be ashamed. And there's no sugarcoating it. I ain't grateful for getting there. No. Howie Rose, he's got me on Howie Rose. It's an embarrassment. It's an absolute embarrassment. I want a manager that knows the feel of the game. Give me Don Mattingly. He's available. Yeah, he was first base coach for the Blue Jays this year, or bench coach, whatever he was. He's available. Bring Donnie Baseball here. And he can shove the binder up your ass. An embarrassment. And that's how I'll leave it. Because I'm tired of it burning up my life. We had a chance, we had an opportunity, and we choked it away, and we're an embarrassment. That's the end. Finishing up my thought on the Titans final, though. I got sidetracked. I want to thank everybody out there. And I posted this on Facebook. Thank you for all the people that tuned in day and night. West Coast trips, 3 o'clock in the morning. We're out there doing shows. 4th of July, we're doing shows. Memorial Day, we're doing shows. Games that didn't end until 1 o'clock in the morning because of a 6-hour rain delay. They were there. You guys tuned in record numbers. You made the Titans final bigger, better, and better than it was in 2022. And we hope to keep that up for you in 2024. Because that's all you really can do, can you, right? It's just go back and get ready for next season. And that's what the Phillies will do. February 12th is when pitchers and catchers report. Free agency, players can start negotiating or with other teams, or they officially become free agents the day after the World Series ends, and they can start signing with other teams 5 days after the World Series ends. And of course, the World Series is the Texas Rangers versus the Arizona Diamondbacks, which I will not watch 1 second of, and I don't give a goddamn who wins. Baseball's dead to me for 2023. Embarrassment. So that's it. That's my rant about the Phillies. I feel better. I was late to the party. I had 3 days of anger or 2 days of anger built up. I had to get out, but it's out. Moving on. Transition now to the Philadelphia Flyers, who are actually playing right now. I don't know what the score is. I'm not paying attention, but 3-2-1. Interesting road trip. They went down to Dallas. They went out to Vegas. Moving some pieces around. Emil Andre got sent back down to Lehigh Valley and to replace him. There's an injury going on, Ristolainen, that no one's talking about. He's now going to be out for a foreseeable future. There's no timeline on his return. They're not discussing what the injury is. They're getting solid play, a lot like they were last October. I kind of agree with the theory, though, that because of the kind of camp Tortorella runs, the team comes into the beginning part of the season probably a little bit more in better shape than the other teams. Takes the other teams a little bit longer to get up to that speed, but then eventually they do, and then they pass the Flyers because the Flyers just don't got the talent, man. That's the reality of it all. But 3-2-1, it's the type of hockey they're going to play all season. They're going to be hovering around 500 all year. I definitely believe that. So it's not a tanking year, and it's a year that if things break right, they may find themselves in a playoff position at the end or battling for one. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. They did lose in overtime the other day. They are now 3-13 over the last 2 seasons in overtime. Right there is a playoff spot. You know, I mean, that you take half those games and you put those as 2 points instead of 1. You got something there. So the Flyers they're back in action, and now that baseball is over with, I can focus fully on the Philadelphia Flyers and the National Hockey League. And as I said, the Flyers are playing right now out in Minnesota. And if you're interested about our schedule here on the Edge of Philly Sports, here you have the rest of this week. Again, it's Friday, right? You have me talking to Philly Sports with Matty B, the Kelly Green Hour, and then no, there is no Fightins final for the World Series Game 1. That's obviously not friggin' happening, all right? And then the rest of what we got going on. Keep looking out for everything that's going to be happening here on the Edge of Philly Sports for the rest of this week. And if you want to travel like the pros, look no further than Philly Sports Trips. They got you covered. Everything Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, Union, Phillies, everything. Head over to phillysportstrips.com. And then if you're looking to kind of alleviate some of your angst, and I hope I didn't create more problems tonight than you already have, but if you need to go somewhere and vent, do it responsibly, though, at Dolan's Bar down there at 24 East Sellers at Ridley Park for Quizzo music, great times, memorabilia giveaway. You never know who might walk through the front door. And then Sherry's tickets, great prices, no hidden fees. Sherry's tickets at www.sherrytickets.com. And Dave Cherry for all your workers' compensation, motor vehicle accident, personal injury, and criminal law questions and concern. Dave has you covered. So the Flyers 3-2-1. This is more of a kind of a developing story. We're getting some strong play for some players. The revolving door that I mentioned between Philadelphia and Lehigh Valley is now starting to swing. Morgan Frost has been a healthy scratch all season. That is definitely something to keep an eye on. I believe he's in his doghouse. The Flyers just want so much more out of this kid, and I don't know if he's capable of giving it to them. So he's been a healthy scratch all season. That's a developing story. The cloud hanging over Carter Hart with this Canadian national team investigation, it doesn't seem to be affecting his play because he's gotten off to a great start. The power play is putrid, 1 for 20. But again, for a good power play to work, you need top end talent on it. Flyers don't have that. Don't expect the power play to resolve itself anytime soon. But the Flyers have also scored 4 shorthanded goals, and they're actually a very good shorthanded hockey team, extremely good. So I guess there's some pleasure to be taken from that. But so far, so good with the Flyers as they have gotten things started here in 2023 and 24. And on to my final topic, as promised, the Philadelphia 76ers. That's right, man. Listen, I'm a huge basketball guy. I really am. I love basketball. Played it all my life. Grew up in the era of Michael Jordan. Grew up really in the era of the NBA Renaissance, honestly, when the game changed. And I've been a huge basketball fan all my life and a huge Sixers fan all my life. But over the last 3 or 4 years, with the dumpster fire that the process has turned into, and then the Ben Simmons drama, and then the Doc Rivers nonsense, and then now with the James Harden stuff, I'm done. I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to speak about the Sixers until Ben Simmons was traded. I stuck to that promise. Boom. Then the Doc Rivers stuff. I made another promise. I will not speak of the Sixers until they fire Doc Rivers. They fired him last year. I was really expecting to come into this season jazzed up about the Sixers and about what was hopefully going to finally give with them another loser team. And then down to James Harden, Daryl Morey stuff. I'm not going to sit here in length at all and talk about it. But their season begins tonight. And there's some interesting pieces going on. The Nick Nurse era, Jaden Springer, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid and all that. They should be a competitive team. But I am here now to create to voice an edict. I will not speak one word of the Philadelphia 76ers until the following demands are met. The firing of Daryl Morey, the trading of James Harden, and the trading of Joel Embiid. Until those three things are done, I am done with the Sixers. I will not speak of them. I will not consider myself a 4-for-4 guy anymore until those three things are met. Firing of Daryl Morey, trading of James Harden, and the trading of Joel Embiid. I'm done. The Sixers are a dumpster fire. A dumpster fire wrapped around an enigma shoved inside of a riddle. And I'm done. So I get little bursts. I make an edict. 2 years later, they deliver on it. I make another one. 2 years later, they deliver on it. And now I'm here making another one. So I'm out. I'm out until this is done. So the process is no more. Is never more. So no more Sixers talk for me until Morey's fired, Harden's traded, and Embiid is traded. Do you guys understand my demands? Let's hope they meet them. Folks, that's going to do it for me tonight. Thank you for sticking with me for an hour and a half on this Friday night. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Oh, I'm sorry. I almost got out here without giving you my Week 8 picks. That's right, man. Where is my head? Let me get my pad out here. Let me get to them. That was Week 7, Week 8, Week 8. Really should have multiple pads here so I don't have to flip around like this and kill time. But here I am, Week 8. So last week, Week 7, I was a putrid 3-9 in my picks. 3-9. Now I've fallen to 58-46 on the season. But here we go. Here are my Week 8 picks. And again, we're back to Thursday night now because it's reality. I've been on the air this whole time. I don't know what's happening in Buffalo. But let's start with the Eagles and the Washington Commanders. You already heard my pick. I like the Eagles. Give me Buffalo over Tampa tonight. I don't see that going any other way. On the Sunday, Rams over Dallas. Never will ever pick the Cowboys. Minnesota over Green Bay. Atlanta over Tennessee. New Orleans over Indiana. Miami over New England. The Jets over the Giants. Carolina over Houston. Cleveland over Seattle. Kansas City over Denver. Baltimore over Arizona. Cincinnati over San Francisco. The Chargers over the Bears on Sunday night, and Detroit over the Raiders on Monday Night Football. And there are my Week 8 picks from Matty B to you. And that will finally do me for the night. Listen, as I mentioned, Monday, we will be back live. We are back live. So hopefully you join us then. We'll do some more Birds breakdown, and we'll talk some more Phillies sports with Matty B. Until then, until then, that is the news, and I'm out of here.